Hey guys, today I'm going to walk you through how to create a simple loan amortization schedule in Google Sheets. Now, you can use Microsoft Excel all the same formulas, same everything. So this is a great template that you can use for that as well. Now I'm going to start quite easy, just with a simple amortization schedule and build it up throughout the video. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing we need when we create a loan amortization schedule is the loan amount. So this is the amount that you owe to the lender. So if it's a car loan, it could be 10,000, student loan, 50,000. If it's a mortgage, could be anywhere up to millions of dollars. So this is where we put that amount. So what I'll do in this example is $10,000. Keep it simple. So you'll see that the number has come through pretty bland. What we can do is press one of these buttons, like that one, and it gives us the dollar amount. So it looks a lot cleaner with decimal points, that kind of thing. The next thing we need is the interest rate. So I'll just keep that one in. And what we do is we talk about this one on a per annum basis or per year. So if you have a mortgage, it might be 5-6%. If you have a credit card, it might be 20. So what I'll do in this simple example is just use a rate of 10% with a percent sign, and there we have it. The next thing we need to talk about is the term. Now this is measured in years. So I'll just key that in. So here we're measuring a number of years. So if I have a car loan, it might be for 5 years. If I have a mortgage in the US, it might be 30 years. In this example, I'll use 3 years to keep it simple and keep the schedule a bit shorter for demonstrative purposes. The final thing we need to know is the periods. So how often are we paying? Are we paying weekly, monthly, fortnightly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually? This is where we put that amount. So in this example, we'll just use monthly, just to keep it simple for this first example. So there we have all the main items we need to know to create the loan amortization schedule. So I'll just include PMT here as we'll need it later. And where I generally start is with a 0. So with a timestamp. At the point we take out the loan, that's where we start. Then we need to number all of our installments, the first installment, second, third, fourth, etc. So what I use is the sequence formula. This does the hard work for us and it's adaptive. As we change things up the top, that filters through into our schedule. So what we need to do is take our term and we need to multiply that by our periods. Now monthly, there are 12 months in a year. So here we need to use 12. And what you'll see here, if I use, I'm on a Mac, so command down or control down if you're on a PC, right down the bottom, 36. So we have 36 installments, 3 years, 12 payments in each, 36 total. So that's where we start. The first item I look at is the balance of the loan in our schedule. So at the time we take out our contract at 0 days or 0 months, it's $10,000. So I'll just go equals B1, and that gives us the value. We don't want the autofill, that thing that just came up. We don't want that. The next thing we look at is the installment. So this starts from period 1. So what I do is an equal sign here, pointing to PMT. Now, what I do in PMT is I go equals PMT, standing for payment. So this is our installment, payment, whatever you like to call it. So we have this question mark in Google Sheets. What we can do is click that and it tells us the information it requires. So the first thing is our rate. So if we click on the 10%, that is our interest rate, but that's per year. What we need to do is break that down by our periods. So we have 12 periods in a year, so we divide by 12. And an important thing here as well, just locking for good practice, you can go function F4. You can do that on a Mac, you can do it on a PC as well. And that just puts the dollar signs, or you could just type in the dollar signs as well. So that is our interest rates for each period. Then we have our number of periods. So I'll just collapse this. As we just saw, our number of periods is 36 in total across the contract. So we need to go 3, and we'll lock that down, multiplied by 12, representing monthly. And then we can put another comma. And then we need to, let's have a look, find our present value. So that is our loan amount at the start of the contract. So we need to use a minus sign here. So we can go minus. I'll just collapse this again. And then I select the 10,000, locking for good practice. And then a comma. And then what we need to find is our future value. So if you have a contract that has a balloon, in other words, you want to amortize or pay off the loan until you have a balance of a certain amount, say $2,000, this is where you would key that in. So in our case, we'll amortize to 0. So we put 0 there. then the final thing is end or beginning. If you have a loan, it's generally end. If you have beginning, it would be a less or something like that. So here I'll just put 0 for end, and we'll close the brackets. So our PMT, or our payments or installments, comes through as $322.67. So that is a very simple example of how to put the installments in the schedule. And we'll just lock this B5 as well, just to always reference that cell as we drag it down. The next thing we need to look at is how we break down this installment. This $322 isn't all principal because we have an interest rate. So it's principal and it's interest. So we start with principal. There we go, spelled it right. And in interest. There we go. So these two things, principal plus interest equals installment. So there's two different components. The first thing we do is we start with interest, and we can use an IPMT formula here. PMT, there we go. So interest payment. The other one was just payment. So here we can look at the rate as we did before, 10%. Here we definitely need to lock it down. Divide by 12 for monthly. The period, here we don't lock the cell because as we drag this formula down, we want it to pick up the 1, the 2, the 3, 4, that kind of thing down. So I'll just capture that 1 there. Number of periods, that's the total. So as we did before, 3, making sure to lock it. Multiplied by 12 for monthly. Present value minus 10,000. Don't forget to lock the cell. Then we have future value. As we don't have a balloon, it's going to be 0. And then we have end or beginning, which is 0 once again. So our interest in this first installment is $83.33. So our principal, since it's principal plus interest equals installment, must be the difference between the two. There we have it. So when we make our first installment of $322, $83 of this is interest and the rest is principal. And that will change throughout the loan as well, because the balance will be declining as we go through. So as you can see here, we started with 10,000, but the principal, us actually paying off that contract, was $239. So we subtract that off, and that's the value we get. So now what we want to do is we want to drag these formulas right to the bottom of the schedule. Now you can either double click on whatever appears here. Here's a circle. I think Excel might be a square. And as you can see, those numbers have copied all the way down to the bottom of the schedule, all of those sequences that we set up at the start. And you can see the balance has ended up at 0. So we've done this correctly. So the loan is fully amortizing from $10,000 down to 0. So after 36 periods, we've paid off the contract. So that is at its most simple form, how we create a loan amortization schedule. The next thing I'll do is I'll create a lookup so that when we change this from monthly to fortnightly or weekly, our schedule will change with it. So if we look at our different options, we have weekly, fortnightly, and we have monthly. So now we need to say how many times in a year, if we're paying weekly, we make a payment. So that'd be 52. For fortnightly, 26. And for monthly, it'd be 12. So we just key those in, 26 and 12. Now we need to say what each of them relates to a number of days. So weekly would be 7, fortnightly, for example, would be 14. So we'll just key those in, just like that. And now we're ready to do our lookup. The first one, for example, would be here in sequence. So we multiply it by 12. So what we now need to do is an X lookup. So if we do it like that, what we're looking for is what we put here. And we'll just lock that formula. And then we need to look at the lookup range. So the lookup range is just here, and we'll lock that one down as well. And then our answer that we're looking for is this one here. So we lock that one down as well. And what you'll find now is that it's still 36. So let's change that to weekly and see what we get. So now you can see all these payments going down to 156. So that's 52 times 3 because we have a loan for 3 years. So that's how that changes. Let me just change this back to monthly. Now let's find where else it appears. So here, for example, we've got a few multiplications by 12. So what we'll do here is an X lookup. We'll look against the weekly and we'll lock that down. We'll look up this one here. We'll lock it down. And then finally this answer, and we'll lock that one down as well. So let's copy and paste that everywhere we have a 12 there as well. and this one as well. Nowhere else, I don't believe. I think that should be it. So we'll drag this right the way to the bottom. Oh, too far. Let's just scroll down here. Sorry guys, there was a bit of a glitch there in the video. Let's just proceed from this point here. So as you can see, we've got those X lookups here in some of the formulas. We've got one in interest, we've got one here in payments, we have one somewhere else. Nope, that's everything. And I've dragged that formula right to the bottom. So if we change this now to weekly, you'll see our scheduled installments expand out to 156 as we saw before. The problem is that our formulas haven't gone down all the way. So if we change this, double click on that figure, what you can see is that the loan now comes back to 0 at the end of the 3 years or the end of the 156 weekly payments. So this has worked exactly the way we want. The problem is if we go back here and we change this back to monthly. So now we've got 36 here and we've got a whole lot of hash nums here. But what we can see is that at 36, we do get to a balance of 0. Now the way we can clean this up and make it more dynamic without all of this stuff here is we can add an if statement. So if we go if, then we click here on the empty cell. Oh, might have to get rid of that one there. If, no. Oh, might need to get rid of this as it is. So if this is equal to 0 or nothing, blank, then we put blank. If not, then what we do is we take this and we subtract off the principal amounts. So there we have it. We can do the same here. So we've got a locked B5 cell. So if, and let's just put 2 here. If this is equal to blank, then blank. If not, then take B5. So you can see they're starting to become blank as we go through. I'll do the same here. If that is equal to blank, blank, close that one off. And the same here, finally. If that is blank, blank. So we're just putting in the speech marks there if you're looking for that key. So now you can see it's come up blank, and we can copy this all the way down. So now you'll see it comes up as blank, and we'll do the same here as well. So that formula now applies all the way down. So if we change this to fortnightly, there we go. Our payment is updated to 148, and you can see that we end up at 0 again. So it's very dynamic. We've got the formulas here, but it doesn't appear as hash num or whatever as we changed this figure here. Monthly, oh, not that way, monthly, there we go. And again, weekly, like this, ends with 0. So that is a good looking schedule. I'll just change it back to monthly. So as you can see, this interest component declines over time as the interest is calculated on the outstanding balance at any one point in time. And the principal amount, the component of the installment, is increasing in proportion as the interest amount declines. So that's kind of the mechanics of this contract. Now what we need to do is use these numbers here that we put in earlier. So what we'll need to do here is add an extra column. One column left. Might just drag this stuff across. Delete cells, delete and shift left. Yep, so here we're going to put in the date, because the next thing we're going to do is work out the actual interest. So this is how some lenders would actually calculate their contracts as opposed to what we've done so far. What we've done so far is more of an approximation. Some lenders use it, but most don't. So if I work out today's date, let's pretend the loan was taken out today. So we can use a today formula. Today, empty brackets. So it's the 22nd of December 2024. Now what we need to do is put in a bit of logic, because monthly can be different for every date. So what we want to do is say equals if this period, and we will lock that, if that period is not monthly, because monthly is the exception here. What we would do if it's weekly, if it's monthly, is use another X lookup. So we would look up monthly, and we'll lock that. in this section here, and we'll lock that, and we'll take those figures from here. So that is what we do if we want weekly or monthly, weekly or fortnightly. If we want monthly, we do something else. So here for monthly, we use e-date. And that basically tells us we want the 22nd of December to translate into 22nd of January, one period across. So we would take our date here, make sure not to lock it here. And if we expand this, months. So we want it 1 month ahead. So we go 1. And then what we have is 1 month in the future. If we go weekly, just to test that works. Oh, okay. So you see what we've done here. So what we've done is we've picked up the 7, but we haven't added it to basically the date that came beforehand. So if we take that plus the X lookup, there we go. So there we have it. We have our dates there. So now let's just drag that formula on, and we can see that that has continued on as expected. So we can take that all the way to the bottom. And we'll just need to apply our logic there as well around if this is blank. So if schedule equals blank, blank, there we have it. So let's copy that one down. So if we change now to monthly, yep, so that's working as expected. So now we've got that lookup working on the date. Now we need to work out the interest. So let's just first of all have a look at whether our amounts change. So equals sum of this column. Oh, yep, that works. So what we can see is that the sum of principal is $10,000 because we're repaying the entire principal of the contract. Now what we need to look at is the sum of interest. So we can do that same formula and copy it across. So we've got $1,616.19 of interest throughout the life of the contract. This aligns with what ANZ would calculate. Okay, so now let's look at calculating the actual interest that many lenders would charge. So here what we can do is we can go equals, and now we're going to look at the number of days. So number of days here is 31. So you can see that appears, and we multiply that by our daily interest rate. So we take the interest rate of the contract, and then we divide by 365. So we have a daily rate that we apply to the principal. So let's just take the principal as well throughout the life of the contract. Now, we should be locking this 10%. There we go. So if we go equals, you'll see the amount has changed slightly, not by a great deal, but slightly, as you can see. So now we just need to apply our if logic as well. So if that date equals blank, blank, close that off. And now we can copy it all the way down. So I'll just check that is where it needs to be. Yes, it is. If we go for weekly, yep, so there you go. It's gone all the way down. And our interest has actually declined, surprisingly. The sum of principal has changed too. Now, this is because our payment amount no longer exists. Like it's no longer relevant. This is the PMT formula, but our interest is veered away from the IPMT. We're now doing it manually. So if I just change it to monthly to make it simpler, and I'll paste this value as, paste this number as a value. What we have to do is go in here and change it up a little bit until we get as close as we possibly can. So 66, 65. So I'm looking at this amount here in the sum of principal. So here I'm 14 cents out. If we go back, I'm 28. So the closest I'll ever get with 2 decimal places is this figure here. So we'll keep that one. And the interest has gone back to about where it needs to be. So before I think it was around 1,616, thereabouts. So we've returned to that figure here. So that is how you calculate the actual interest. Now, the final thing that I'll be showing in this video is the extra payment. So that's if you are going through the life of your loan and you think, hey, I've come into some money, I've got a bonus from work, I've done some extra stuff around the house, done some jobs for people, whatever it might be. I can add that into my schedule as well. So we can add an extra column here called extra payment. And let's say at month 12, we want to make an extra payment of $500. So what we need to do is incorporate this into our schedule. So what we want to do is basically, let's just go here. So on the 22nd of the 12th, I'm making an extra $500 payment. So we need to basically say, not only are we taking principal off of the balance, we're also taking our lump sum. Different lenders have different accommodations for this. Some allow it, some don't. So what we'll do is we'll assume they do, and you'll see that the amount has declined a bit more. So I'll just copy that formula across the entire schedule, and I'll show you how it works. So down here, you can see we're now in negative balances, which isn't what we were looking for before. So what this actually tells me is that sometime between the 22nd of the 10th and the 22nd of the 11th, so sometime in November probably, we've actually paid off our complete loan amount. So this is a good way to reduce the term of your loan, and this is how it would display in the schedule. So that wraps up about everything I wanted to walk through in this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and watch some of my other content, some of which will be appearing somewhere on the side of the screen. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. I look forward to catching you on the next one. Cheers.